Welcome to the Support Raising Solutions podcast, where we help new and current ministry workers grow in being spiritually healthy, vision-driven, and fully funded Great Commission workers. Welcome back to the podcast. I am your host, Callie Davis, and I am the resource designer here at Support Raising Solutions. And I am so very delighted to bring our special guest today. It is the illustrious Kathy Wilson, who is also a part of the SRS core team. She is our coaching specialist. And that comes with some certifications and professional development she's done. So she's bringing in just a wonderful level of education, as well as years in ministry and experience of her own, and always, at least I'm hoping, some good stories, because Kathy is one of my favorite storytellers. So Kathy, I am so delighted to have you join us today.
Thanks, Callie. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And of course, Kathy is joining us to talk about coaching, but specifically, she's going to introduce us to kind of one of the key questions to move into action. So if you are support raising or honestly doing anything and you've gotten to a stuck point, Kathy's going to talk us through a key question and break that one question down that can help you kind of assess how to move forward. What are things you can do so that you actually make progress? So Kathy, take it away, because I'm dying to learn this one question.
It's kind of a magical question, actually. I love it. It can be used in multiple situations, because I think one of the toughest things in leadership, in coaching, is getting people into action. It's easy to get stuck.
Oh, yeah.
And then what do you do?
Well, yeah, then you're stuck. And I feel like when I've done this in coaching and trying to help someone, I feel like I get stuck in the circle of just kind of going back over the numbers again and again and again. Mm-hmm. Well, okay, did that, do it again, try harder. I don't know what to tell them to do differently, because the first plan I gave them didn't work.
Yeah, we've all been there, right? I remember our son, when he reached middle school, he really started struggling. He had multiple classes that he had to kind of keep track of, multiple teachers, trying to organize things. And it meant that homework wasn't getting turned in. Then when he wasn't doing homework, then if you don't do the homework, you don't do very well on tests, right? You don't do well in general. And it came to this place where we're just kind of spinning our wheels. Nothing is changing. He was stuck, and he needed help kind of getting into action. Right. I think we've all been there. I've been there.
I'm sure a lot of parents have been there.
Absolutely. Yes. What do you do? What do you do when either you're in that place where you're stuck, or you have someone that you're coaching, or one of your kids, whatever the situation is, then what do you do to move forward?
And this one question is going to solve this?
It's definitely a good tool.
Okay.
It's not, I think, as we'll discuss, one of the dangers that we're going to unpack a little bit is kind of this all or nothing thinking I have to solve the problem. If I do this one thing and the problem is solved. And I think that actually is why a lot of people get stuck.
Sure.
Because then it becomes about, okay, I just need to figure out all these steps that I need to do, and then that will solve the problem, rather than looking at what can I do to make forward movement.
Right. You keep just throwing yourself at the wall thinking someday it's going to move.
Exactly. And that actually leads us into our question. The question is, what actions could I take to move forward? It's about forward momentum.
Okay, say the question one more time. So this is the question that we're talking about.
This is the magic question, okay? So it's, what actions could I take, or could you take if you're coaching someone else, to move forward? So it's about forward movement. It's not about having the right answers to solve the problem and be done.
I will say it sounds pretty simple for a question that's going to do a lot.
That's the beauty of it. It's a very simple question, so it's easy to remember, but when we break it down, you can see the power behind it.
Okay, well, let's break it down. I want to dive into this.
Absolutely. So, okay, starting with what?
What?
What? If you look at what, that is open-ended, right? If I ask, what actions could you take? Then it's not a yes or no question. Some of the problems that we face is we ask, did you do this? When you ask, did you do this? Like if I were to ask my son, did you do this? Then for him, it became a yes or a no answer. And a lot of times the answer was no for him. But then it didn't ever reveal why was it no.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
So I could ask the question, and that was part of where we got stuck, is I'm asking, okay, did you do this homework? Did you study for this test? Did you do this? And the answer inevitably was no. But because it was a closed-ended question, we never got to the why. So when you ask open-ended questions, that's the beauty of this question. When you start with the what, it's open-ended. It reveals hidden fears, hidden hopes, problem-solving strategies. It actually gets to the why we're stuck.
That's huge, because I think, especially in support raisings, that's kind of our audience here. We run through that checklist. If you've been to any good training, you probably have a checklist of things that you want to say or not say and how to say it.
Yeah.
And so you can run through and say, okay, I did this on the phone call. I invited them to an appointment. I didn't mention these things. I was really clear that I was going to invite them to financially partner. And yet here I am and it's not working.
Yeah.
But I did the checklist.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do? You've done the checklist, but now you can't figure out why you're stuck.
Oh man, I feel this. I feel this just for my own of that feeling of being stuck, but then also coaching. I feel that's when you feel so hopeless in trying to help someone.
Yeah.
Because you're seeing them do the checklist and all you know to do is go back through the checklist. Like maybe they didn't mean they really did that thing. So let's just double check they really did the thing. And what else can you do? But you're right. If that's all you're checking on, if that's all you're asking about, you're going to be stuck there with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not ever moving into a deeper why. Oof.
So going back to our son, he had this English notebook. The teacher had this notebook. They would do their assignments every day. They would put their assignments in the notebook, and it had several dividers. But what she would do is at the end of each class period, she would say, okay, now this is where this goes in your notebook. And her notebook was always on her desk. So even if, you didn't do it with her at the end of class, you could always go to her desk, find her notebook, and make sure that your notebook matched.
Okay.
And that, just having a matching notebook, was like their midterm grade. So it was pretty significant. Yeah. And so for Samuel, I was asking him, did you make sure that your notebook matched? Did you? And the answer was always no. Always no. And, at one point, he is frustrated and he's crying, and I can't figure out, this seems like a no-brainer, right? You just have to match the notebook. Did you do this? Rather than asking an open-ended question to figure out why he was so paralyzed and unable to match his notebook to his teacher's notebook. So asking the what, asking an open-ended question, reveals a lot of times our fears and our hidden beliefs that cause us to be stuck.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So open-ended questions, starting with a what?
Starting with the what.
I already love this.
Okay.
I feel like it's only going to get better because there's more of a question.
I know. We're only on the first word. I told you, it's magical. So then from there, it's actions. So what actions? And actions is important. You want to encourage that brainstorming process. You want to encourage, because when you talk actions, then people become more creative. They start thinking, oh, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. Don't worry about the what we're going to do. At this point, it's just free game. You can circle back to, okay, now which of these can you do?
Sure.
But asking what actions gives this great amount of freedom to kind of go, okay, yeah, what actions?
So you're just getting to whiteboard all these different ideas instead of immediately making a decision of this one.
Yes, absolutely. You're not locked in. It doesn't, absolutely. Which actually leads us to the next part of the question, the could you take? Because that was another mistake I made with our son, the could you take versus will you take.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's a big difference.
So with Samuel, if I would ask, just tweak the question a little, what actions will you take moving forward? Then all of a sudden, as soon as he answers, this is what I will do, he's locked in, right?
Yeah.
And so then it's kind of this overwhelming, I have to do this, but what if I say the wrong answer, right? You know, it's supposed to, we're looking at actions. Let's go back one word to actions. We're supposed to be brainstorming, whiteboarding, as you said, right? But then all of a sudden, if I'm locked in because it's, will you do this?
That feels like a totally different answer I'm going to give.
Oh, absolutely. And then it stunts that whole brainstorming process, the whiteboarding, whatever you want to call it. You're paralyzed is the word I think of, because that was where Samuel was. He just was paralyzed. Versus when I would open it up and say, what actions could you take? Then all of a sudden, that brainstorming was freeing for him. And we could look at all of these different actions that were possibilities, that they didn't have to, this didn't have to be the right answer, which is what we were talking about before, is when you say, I will do this, all of a sudden it becomes about, I need to solve this problem. It's very black and white, all or nothing. It's about the problem, and it then is not about forward momentum.
Well, and I think you've opened up this incredible space in between problem and solution to have discernment, to have ideas that you know aren't great ideas, but they're also are going to help your brain think differently about a problem.
Absolutely.
To kind of branch out to other things you didn't have space to consider before.
Absolutely.
And before you know it, you suddenly have just a much broader network of thought to move forward with. That before, when you jumped from problem to solution, you kept in that same line of thought, so you kept hitting the same wall. You never had any space to grow the thought of what's going on here.
Yes.
What rabbits can I chase for potential solutions?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know about you, but sometimes, not sometimes, often, I have to go through a whole bunch of bad ideas.
Oh, yeah.
Before, I think sometimes I learn more from failure and, okay, so how can I make this into something that propels me forward? So I keep having that forward movement. Oh, yeah. And I think if that's our goal, is to keep moving forward rather than solving the problem, I think that's where we get stuck, is we have to solve the problem. And what if it's not about solving the problem in this moment? It's just about making sure we're making forward progress. Okay.
Yeah, it feels like a small difference.
Yeah.
But that probably makes a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, where are we wrapping up this question? I feel like we're near the end because it wasn't a long question.
It's not a long question. So we did, what actions could you take? The last part is key to move forward.
Okay.
We've hit on it several times. It's not about this all or nothing, black and white, solving the problem. It's about making forward momentum. And that was where with Samuel, he saw this huge mountain in front of him, all of these things that he couldn't organize, he couldn't keep track of. And so it trying to figure out how to make this gigantic step from the bottom of the mountain to somehow summit it was kind of how he was looking at it, and that's where he got paralyzed. But to look at, I just need to move forward. I just need to take one step at a time.
Well, that makes so much sense, and I feel all our listeners probably have identified so many areas in their own life that fits. I think, especially with support raising, everything from if you've fallen back on communication well with your ministry partners, it's one of those things. I think often we have a good picture of what we'd love for our communication to be with all these people that are partnering with us. But if we, for whatever reason, have kind of fallen into a habit of not doing anything or doing very, very little, that gap between where we are now and that ideal can feel so overwhelming. It's that mountain instead of just starting and getting some progress, which is huge.
It is.
To start doing anything is such a big step, is such a big momentum builder. And you're never going to get anywhere further unless you take a step.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's amazing after you start taking those steps. You talked about momentum. It's once the momentum starts building, it becomes easier and easier, and those steps don't feel quite as difficult until you've made it halfway up the mountain or whatever, and you're like, how did I get here? Okay, I can do this.
Now, does this process still work if I'm thinking about support raising, if you've got this problem and you really don't know why this problem keeps happening? You can answer this question, you can make some progress. Is that going to work even though you have no idea how to solve the big problem of maybe no one is willing to meet with you and you just don't know why, but you've been able to brainstorm some solutions of communicating differently, some other things you might try, which isn't answering the question, but is this process going to help? Maybe it'll open doors to eventually find the solution.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I think as long as we remember it's about the process and making that forward momentum and not necessarily having the answer now. I've coached someone who is in that situation that you're talking about, is having difficulty, people not wanting to meet with them and not knowing kind of the why behind it. And so asking this question, what actions can you take moving forward? As we dove a little bit more into that what and revealing, okay, rather than did you do this? Did you ask this question when you met with this person? Right. Did you go through your checklist? Did you do all of these things? As we were talking, it was revealed that people, this person's view of it was a business transaction. And so rather than sitting down and inviting people to partner with what God was doing, it became very much this, okay, there was no hello, how do you do, any of that. It wasn't relational at all. It was just, let's get to the business of raising support. And so as we asked some of those open-ended questions, realizing, oh, you know what, this is a bigger issue. This comes down to some theology of what you believe about support raising and what you believe about partnering with God and his kingdom work. And so we have to start there. And so that is actually forward movement, looking at how do we make a paradigm shift so that then it's about the kingdom rather than the business transaction of I need to check it off my list. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I really love this shift of focus, because it doesn't matter if the problem is overwhelming or the problem is kind of too undetermined, or there isn't a lot of clarity with what is the core of the problem. The whole point is just to move forward, and to have space to brainstorm how to do that. And that seems really doable.
Absolutely. And when you redefine success, when it's about forward movement rather than I have to solve the problem and that is success, it's a great feeling.
Oh yeah. Well, then you get to have some wins. Then you get to
absolutely
to feel a lot more successful.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. Well, any other comments, Kathy? I feel like I could just listen to more and more of these. Is there a second question I should be asking about, or I'm good to go? I've got the one question.
There are absolutely more questions. For now, though, this question works in just about any situation, and it's so simple that I feel like you can remember it, you can pull it out, and if you're remembering the why behind each of the words, why it's important in the question, then it helps with the process as well.
All right. So the question is, what actions can I take to move forward?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I am so excited. Thank you, Kathy, so much for enlightening us.
Absolutely.
This has been a fun time, and hopefully it's been helpful to all of you listeners, whether you are in a place that you're wanting to make some forward progress, that you felt stuck, or maybe you're coaching someone, that this can be a tool that you use to help them. And with that, Kathy, thank you again. And listeners, thank you for listening. Have a great day. Thanks for joining us today, and please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode as we work to give more insight into building and maintaining your ministry partnership team.